That's what she said, right in front of my own son, at the dinner table, with my grandson staring at his plate, frozen. And my son? He didn't say a word. The last bite of my food stuck in my throat. I reached for my water, hands trembling slightly, but I kept my face straight. My daughter-in-law, Kayla, had that smug little smile as if she just took out the trash and was proud of it. "I'll help pack her things," she added, sipping her wine. Before I dive in, feel free to let me know where you're watching from, and if you enjoy the story, a like and subscribe would mean a lot. I turned my head to my son, Mark. He still didn't look up, just picked at his food like a child who didn't want to be at the table. I wasn't surprised. Mark had changed since he married her. The man I raised, strong, kind, respectful, now looked like a ghost waiting for permission to speak. I folded my napkin and stood up slowly. No drama, no tears. But I looked her dead in the eye and said, "That house, it's not yours to kick me out of." She laughed. I swear she thought I was senile. "Sure, Carol, and I'm the Queen of England." Mark chuckled nervously. And that was it. The moment the mask cracked, that single chuckle told me he was in on it. They wanted me out. Maybe they thought I'd just vanish quietly. But they forgot something. The deed was still in my name. 27 years ago, my late husband and I bought that house. Fully paid, no mortgage. After he passed, I moved into the small guest room when Mark got married, offered them space so they could save. "Just temporary, Mum," he said. That temporary turned into 5 years. And now they thought I was some old burden. That night, while they watched Netflix and drank cocktails, I stayed up researching real estate lawyers. I found one, and that was the beginning. I waited. I smiled. I baked cookies the next morning. I watched my grandson leave for school. Then I called the agent. The house was listed in secret. A private buyer visited on a day Kayla was out with her friends and Mark was at work. The realtor staged it perfectly, clean, warm and welcoming. The buyer made a cash offer the next morning, $890,000. I didn't tell them, not a word. The buyer agreed to close in 30 days, fast, silent, efficient. I even found a lovely retirement condo in the city, fully paid up front from the sale, quiet, secure and walking distance to the library. Now here's where it all twisted. They thought they sold the house behind my back. They found a buyer online, claimed they were moving to a new dream home in another town. But they didn't know the deed was still mine. All they did was show fake documents and promises. The buyers backed out once they checked the ownership. And instead of asking questions, Kayla got loud. "You're sabotaging us, Carol. You're jealous we're moving up." I just stared. Then one morning they left with suitcases, headed for a vacation before the move. I knew it was a cover. They were trying to dodge confrontation, hoping the house would sell itself while they were gone. But when they came back, the key didn't work. They fumbled at the door, confused. Then Kayla's voice echoed through the neighborhood. "What the hell?" Taped to the door was a white envelope. Inside, a typed letter. "This property has been legally sold by the sole owner. You have 48 hours to vacate any remaining personal items. The buyer takes possession immediately." Carol screams. Panic. Kayla dropped her bag. Mark looked like a man hit by lightning. That's when I stepped out of the neighbor's garage holding a cup of tea. I'd been watching the whole thing unfold. "You should have read the fine print," I said calmly. They both spun toward me. You can't do this," Kayla shrieked. "Oh, but I did," I replied, "and there's nothing left here for you." That's when she lunged toward me, rage boiling over. But something else happened, something she didn't expect. Mark said her name, but not in the way he used to. His voice cracked. "Kayla, stop." She froze. "You told me she'd already signed it over. You said she wanted to go to a home." The silence that followed shattered everything. Kayla's face turned white. And that's when I knew. This wasn't just about the house. There was more. Much more. And I hadn't even opened my safe deposit box yet. where the second surprise was waiting for them. Mark's voice hung in the air like a broken string. He didn't yell. He didn't curse. He just stood there, blinking as if the truth was rewriting itself right in front of him. "You told me she already signed the house over to us," he said again, quieter this time. Kayla didn't move. Her eyes darted from me to Mark to the locked door. Her lips parted like she had a reply ready, but nothing came out. I could almost see her calculating, scrambling for a lie that would land softly. But there were none left. I took a slow sip of my tea and let the silence do the work. "You lied to me," Mark finally said, louder, sharper. She said she didn't want to live here anymore," Kayla snapped, finally finding her voice. "You heard her that night. She said she was tired of being in the way." Mark turned to me, his eyes wide. "Is that true, Mom?" I met his gaze, steady as stone. "I said I was tired of feeling like I was in the way. That's different from saying I want to be thrown out like garbage." He opened his mouth, then closed it again. Kayla stepped forward. "You manipulated this whole thing," she hissed at me. "This is revenge." I didn't flinch. "No, this is correction." Behind them, the new homeowners were pulling into the driveway in a silver SUV, a middle-aged couple with friendly eyes and keys in their hands. Kayla turned, confused. "Who are they?" "Buyers," I said. "Real ones." "You can't just sell a house behind our backs," she yelled. I tilted my head. "Why not? You tried." Mark's hands were on his hips now, pacing, rubbing his temples like the world was cracking open. Wait. The account balance, the emails that bounced back. You shut off our access." I nodded. "The moment you said I was an extra mouth to feed." He looked like a boy again, powerless, cornered. I didn't enjoy his pain, but I didn't rescue him from it either. "You were going to leave me in a nursing home," I said softly. "Then sell the house I paid off, then start your new life." The problem was, I still existed. Kayla's face was red now. "You know what? Fine. You want to play dirty? We'll sue you, right, Mark?" He didn't respond. "I said we'll sue her," she repeated louder this time. Mark's voice was barely audible. "The deed? She's right. It's in her name." Kayla's head snapped toward him. "You checked, didn't you?" He didn't deny it, just looked down at the pavement. That's when I knew she was the architect of all this. Mark was weak, yes. But Kayla, she was deliberate. She wasn't angry that I outsmarted her. She was terrified I'd keep going, and I planned to. The SUV parked and the new owners stepped out. The woman smiled at me. "You must be Carol. Thank you for everything. The paperwork's all finished. We're just here for the keys." Kayla looked like she was about to combust. "This isn't real. You can't just—" But she didn't finish. The man beside her handed me a white envelope. The payment confirmation. Everything was sealed. "Excuse me," the new woman said to Kayla, "but you're kind of on our property now." That broke her. She screamed, right there on the sidewalk, full volume like a kettle whistling. Neighbours peeked through curtains. One even opened their window to get a better look. I didn't stay. I walked away, but not before saying, "There's a moving company scheduled for tomorrow. They'll box your things and deliver them to your new rental apartment. I used part of the sale money to secure the lease for 3 months. After that, you're on your own." Kayla's jaw dropped. "You spent my money," I corrected. "All of it legally mine." And I left them there, standing in front of a door that would never open for them again. But I wasn't finished. I still had one last piece to play. You see, I didn't just sell the house. I'd also opened the safe deposit box that Kayla didn't know existed. Inside was something that changed everything. A letter from my late husband. A letter Mark had never read. And a document Kayla never saw. Mark's father had left him something, but with conditions. Strict ones. And Kayla had already broken every single one. I drove to the bank the next day, pulled out the folder, and sat quietly in my condo. The city buzzed outside my window, but all I could hear was that one line from the letter. If our son ever becomes someone you wouldn't recognize, remind him who raised him. Mark came to see me 2 days later. He looked thinner, tired, alone. "I didn't know," he said. I thought you didn't want to live there anymore." I handed him the letter. His hands trembled as he read it. When he finished, he looked up. "Is it true? About the inheritance?" I nodded. "And the trust fund too. It was always meant for you, but it's locked until you meet the conditions, one of which was treating me with respect." He swallowed hard. "And if I do?" I shrugged. "Then you can start over, but Kayla won't be part of that." He leaned back in the chair, quiet. Finally, he asked, "What do I do now?" I looked out the window. "You learn to cook. You raise your son without bitterness. And maybe you apologize to the person you've been erasing for the last 5 years." Mark didn't cry, but he didn't speak either. We sat in silence until the sun dipped behind the buildings. Then I stood up and said, "I'm going out for a walk. You can lock the door on your way out." I didn't wait for his reply. I just walked out, letting the city swallow me whole. But I hadn't seen the last of Kayla, not even close, because 1 week later, a police officer knocked on my door, and everything turned again. The knock echoed through the condo. 3 slow raps, not urgent, not panicked, just firm. I was halfway through watering my balcony plants when I heard it. I set the can down, wiped my hands on my sweater, and opened the door. There stood a uniformed officer, tall, polite posture, notebook in hand. "Carol Hastings?" he asked. "Yes," I replied, voice steady. "Is there a problem?" He gave me a tight smile, the kind that tried to be reassuring but wasn't. "I just need to ask you a few questions. Mind if I come in?" That was the first moment I felt the twinge of unease. I stepped aside and gestured toward the small sitting area. He entered, took a seat and flipped his notebook open. "I'm Officer Danvers. We received a report concerning a property transfer at your former residence, specifically involving the sale of a house located at 112 Ashbridge Lane." I folded my hands. "Yes, I sold it. I was the legal owner." He nodded. "We're not disputing that. But your daughter-in-law filed a report alleging you committed fraud, that the sale was forged, and that she and her family were evicted unlawfully." I stared at him. "Forged?" He glanced down at his notes. "She claims she has emails showing conversations with realtors, documents that suggest you transferred ownership to your son over a year ago." I nearly laughed. "She's talking about forged documents they created, to trick buyers into thinking they had the right to sell." "Do you have paperwork proving sole ownership?" "Yes. Filed, stamped and notarized. My lawyer has it all." "Would you be willing to come down to the station and give a statement?" "Of course, today. Now, if possible." I didn't panic. I didn't even flinch. This wasn't a real arrest. It was pressure, a bluff, a final desperate move by someone cornered. But I played along. I brought every document I had. Original deed, sale agreement, legal correspondence, and even the surveillance footage my realtor had saved of Kayla walking prospective buyers through the house without permission. At the station, I sat across from 2 detectives. Calm, composed. I laid out the timeline, showed the ownership trail, explained the failed scam Kayla had pulled. One of them leaned back, clearly annoyed. "She didn't mention any of this." "Of course she didn't," I said. "She doesn't lie well when she's not in control." By the time I returned home that evening, my phone had 6 missed calls from Mark, 2 from Kayla, and 1 from a number I didn't recognize. I didn't call any of them back. Instead, I poured a glass of wine, turned on the classical radio station, and let Chopin fill the room. I thought it was over, that she'd tried her final card and failed. But the next day, she went lower. Much lower. I was walking back from the market with a small bag of apples and bread when I passed a group of parents outside the local school. One woman, clearly whispering but trying to be heard, said, "That's her, the one who kicked out her own family for money." Another added, "I heard she changed the locks while they were out of town." I stopped in my tracks, turned. "Excuse me," I asked calmly. The woman blinked. "Oh, sorry, I just heard... You heard a story, but you didn't ask for the truth." I walked away. But the heat was rising. Kayla had gone online. She'd written a long detailed post about being elder abused by her mother-in-law. She claimed I'd tricked them, locked them out and robbed them of their only home. Photos of her crying on the curb, Mark holding their son, cropped perfectly for pity. The post had 11,000 shares by noon. The comments were vicious. "Heartless witch. How could a mother do that to her own son? No wonder she's alone." I stared at the screen, jaw clenched. She was painting herself a victim, and people were buying it. But I wasn't going to argue with trolls. I had a better idea. I contacted my lawyer and asked for the security footage from the day Kayla staged her fake open house. We had full clips, her showing bedrooms, her saying, "We're finalising the title transfer." I also had bank logs showing her attempt to access my financials. I put it all together, but instead of posting it online, I sent it to her boss. Kayla worked as a public relations consultant for a major firm, a reputation-based job, the kind that doesn't pair well with lying to thousands of people online. I didn't send a revenge letter, I just sent the facts. Let the footage speak for itself. 3 days later, Kayla's post disappeared. Her account went private, and I received a text from Mark. "She lost her job. Why would you do that?" I didn't reply, because he still didn't get it. I didn't do anything to her. She did it to herself. A week passed. Silence. Then a knock at my door again, but not a cop this time. Mark, alone, hair messy, shirt untucked, a bag under his eyes the size of a suitcase. "Can I come in?" he asked. I hesitated, but stepped aside. He sat in the same chair as before, quiet, hands folded. "She moved back to her mother's," he said. "She's not talking to me." "Do you want her to?" I asked. He shrugged. "I don't know. I feel like I've been sleepwalking for years." "You have," I said gently. "She made decisions, but so did you." He didn't argue. Instead, he pulled something from his pocket, a crumpled photo of our family at the beach. Years ago. Mark, me, and a 5-year-old with sand all over his face. "I miss this," he whispered. "Then stop letting people erase it," I said. He nodded slowly, then asked, "What do I do now?" I looked at him, really looked at him. "Do something hard. Be a father. Be a man your son can look up to." He swallowed. "Do you think I can fix it?" "Maybe, but not with words. With actions." He stood up. "Can I visit again?" "Only if you bring pie," I said. We both smiled, for the first time in years. But the peace was short-lived, because Kayla wasn't done. She had one last move, and it involved my grandson. 2 days later, I received a court summons. Kayla was suing for full custody, and in the documents, she listed me as a threat to the child's safety, claimed I was mentally unstable, vindictive, and emotionally abusive. She was trying to cut me off from the only piece of my son I truly loved, my grandson. That's when I knew. If I wanted to win this, I had to bring out the secret I'd been hiding since my husband's death. The one even Mark didn't know, the one that would change everything. The courtroom was cold. Not just the temperature, the air, the stares. The judge's eyes scanning over papers, unreadable. Kayla sat across from me, dressed in soft beige, hair pinned back, fake tears already ready to go. She brought her mother, who whispered consoling words into her ear like a mother hen fluffing a snake. Mark wasn't beside her. He sat closer to the back, alone, nervously clutching his knees, head down. I clutched my purse. Inside wasn't just my ID and house keys. It was the folder. The one with the letter from my late husband. The one with the sealed DNA test I had locked away for years, thinking I'd never need to use it. I'd hoped Mark would never find out. But this wasn't about him anymore. This was about my grandson. The judge called the session to order. Custody hearing, Kayla requesting sole legal and physical custody, the grandmother, me, named as an unfit influence. Her lawyer spoke first. He was good, polished. He painted Kayla as the wounded protector, a mother trying to rebuild her life after being emotionally abused and financially devastated by her mother-in-law. He dropped the words unstable, vindictive, manipulative, as casually as he might ask for water. Then it was my turn. My attorney stood up, calm and steady. Your Honour, the petitioner is attempting to weaponize false accusations to isolate our client from her grandson. We have evidence, financial, legal and personal, that disputes the narrative presented today. The judge asked for opening testimony. I stood, hands shaking slightly, but voice clear. I gave them my home, I said. I gave them my trust, and when they decided I was too old to be useful, they tried to erase me. I didn't fight for revenge. I fought to protect what I had left. Kayla scoffed loudly. The judge raised a brow, but then my attorney handed over the folder. This, he said, is the key to understanding the truth. It's a letter from the deceased father of Mark Hastings, husband of the petitioner. And within it, a paternity disclosure that affects not just this custody case, but the very foundation of this family. The courtroom shifted. Kayla leaned forward, eyes darting. The judge opened the letter, read silently, then read it again. The silence was thick. Then the judge spoke. According to this letter, Mr. Hastings suspected he was not the biological father of the child in question. Is that correct? My lawyer nodded. Yes. And with your Honour's permission, we have a sealed DNA result dated 2 years after the child's birth, conducted privately by the grandfather before his passing. I didn't want to look at Mark, but I did. He looked like the floor had fallen away beneath him. Kayla's face turned stone. The judge opened the result. Her eyes narrowed. Then she looked up. Miss Kayla Hastings, would you care to explain? Kayla stood up. That's a lie. That's fake. He never told us about any of that. Did you ever deny it under oath? My lawyer asked. That doesn't mean it's true. Then explain why the trust fund established in the grandfather's will had a clause stating only to be accessed by a blood heir verified by independent testing. Kayla froze, and that was the moment she realised. She had not only lost custody, she had exposed the lie that would cost her everything. Mark stood up, staggered forward. He didn't yell. He didn't cry. He just said, "Is it true?" Kayla didn't answer. "Is it true?" he asked again. Still no answer. The judge slammed her gavel. Order. This hearing will reconvene after recess, pending review of all submitted evidence. In the meantime, temporary visitation rights are granted to the grandmother, Carol Hastings. It was over, for now. Outside the courtroom, Mark caught up with me. You knew? I nodded slowly. Your father knew. He never wanted you to be hurt, but I had to keep it safe, for moments like this. He sat down on the bench like the weight of his entire life had collapsed. I don't know who I am anymore, he said. You're a father, I replied. That's all that matters now. We sat in silence for a long while. Then Mark asked, What do I do about him? The boy? You raise him with truth, I said, even if it hurts. That night, Kayla sent me a voicemail, just 7 seconds. You destroyed everything. I didn't reply. She was right. But what she didn't understand was that she had already destroyed it all long before I ever opened that envelope. I just turned the lights on. Still, it wasn't finished, because Kayla had one more secret. And it had nothing to do with the child. No, it had to do with my late husband. and the will she thought was already buried. I stared at the voicemail again. You destroyed everything. 7 seconds. That's all she sent. No name, no explanation, just venom wrapped in velvet. But something about her voice, it wasn't just rage, it was panic. The kind of panic that doesn't come from losing. It comes from exposure, from the fear that one more layer is about to peel back. And I was about to find that layer. The next morning, I drove to the lawyer's office. Mr. Hallbridge, a sharp man in his 60s who handled my husband's estate. He'd been with us through it all. The house, the will, the trust fund, the sealed DNA letter. When I stepped into his office, he stood up immediately. You saw the hearing? I asked. He nodded. It's all over town, and I have something you need to see. He opened a locked drawer and pulled out a thick sealed brown envelope. What is it? I asked. Your husband's real will, the uncontested, legally binding one. My stomach turned. I thought that was already settled. He sat down. That's what we thought. But 6 months after your husband passed, Kayla came into this office, with Mark. She claimed there was a new addendum to the will, one that left the house in Mark's name. It was typed, unsigned, and legally meaningless. But Mark was grieving, vulnerable. We dismissed it as a misunderstanding. I clenched my fists. She tried to manipulate it even back then. Yes, he said. But I didn't realize how deep it went, until last week. He slid the envelope toward me. Inside was the official, notarized last will of Jonathan Hastings, my husband. It hadn't just left the house to me, it left everything to me with instructions he didn't trust our son, or his wife, to follow through on. And then came the twist. A letter, hand-signed, addressed directly to me. Carol, if you're reading this, it means Kayla's already circling like a hawk. I never trusted her, not after what I found. Check the records from my office. Look at the lease agreement she had before she and Mark got married. Ask Hallbridge about the wire transfer in July 2016. She's not who she says she is. She never was. And Mark needs saving, not punishment. Jonathan. My hands trembled. What lease? I whispered. Mr. Hallbridge slid out another file. We pulled it from our archives after revisiting his notes. Your husband was watching her closely before the wedding. He discovered she had a luxury apartment in another city, under a different name, rented 6 months before she ever met Mark. The rent was paid anonymously, until a single $30,000 wire came from one of Jonathan's business accounts. She told him it was for a cousin in trouble. But he didn't have to finish. I already knew what it meant. Kayla had been siphoning from our family before she even married into it. She planned this, I muttered. She always planned it. Hallbridge nodded grimly. It gets worse. Jonathan had her investigated, quietly. He never told you because he didn't want to cause more pain while he was sick. My breath caught. Investigated? She changed her name, he said. Kayla wasn't even her real name. Birth name? Danielle Carris. Her record is sealed, but she had 2 fraud allegations before she was 21, settled out of court. But that $30,000, it was hush money for someone threatening to expose her. I slumped into the chair. How did I not see it? The way she latched onto Mark, pushed for a quick wedding, moved into our home before the ink on the vows was dry. The way she always smiled but never blinked. It was all a performance. And the will? I asked. Does it still stand? Hallbridge gave a firm nod. Every page, notarized, filed. She has no legal claim to any inheritance, and if the court hears what we have... I looked down at the folder. This wasn't just court ammunition. This was firepower. A woman who tried to lie her way into a family's fortune was now exposed, and I had the match. But there was one problem. If I used it in court to destroy her custody case, it would also destroy my grandson's illusion of his mother. The boy loved her. He didn't know her. He didn't see the cold smile, the hidden phone calls, the way she weaponized every moment to make me look weak or angry. He just saw his mum. I drove home, documents in the passenger seat. The city passed by in a blur, lights smearing across my windshield like watercolour. When I got to my condo, Mark was sitting on the steps. He stood up slowly when he saw me. "I saw the letter," he said. My hands froze on the key. "The one from Dad. Halbridge called me too, said I needed to know." We stood there, both of us cracked open. "She lied to me," he whispered. I didn't say anything. He looked at me with tear-filled eyes. "I didn't just lose my wife, did I? I lost everything I thought I knew." I unlocked the door. "You didn't lose your son," I said. "And you didn't lose me. That's what matters now." He came in. We sat. He didn't ask questions. He just listened while I told him everything. The fake apartment, the wire transfer, the name change, all of it. By the end, he looked hollow. "She built a life on lies, and I was the biggest one." I took his hand. "It's not too late to start telling the truth." He nodded, then said, "Let's win this custody case." But I hesitated. "Mark," I said, "if we go full force with this, your son will lose her completely. Are you ready for that?" He looked down. "I'm not sure," he said honestly, "but I know he deserves better than this." Then came a knock at the door. We both turned. This time, it wasn't a cop. It wasn't Kayla. It was someone neither of us had seen in years. And she was holding another will in her hand. The courtroom echoed with silence after I revealed the DNA truth. Kayla's world had cracked in public, and Mark looked like a man untethered. But the moment the judge called for recess, I knew it wasn't over. That kind of woman? She doesn't go down quiet. That voicemail she left me, "You destroyed everything," wasn't a goodbye. It was a warning. And I was right. Because 3 days later, I received a letter in the mail. No stamp, no return address, just slid under my door in the middle of the night. Inside was a typed threat. "Keep pushing, and your secrets won't stay buried either." No signature. But I didn't need one. It reeked of Kayla. I didn't panic. I prepared. I went straight to the lawyer who handled Jonathan's estate. Mr. Halbridge, calm and sharp as ever, greeted me with a frown. "You might want to sit down," he said. I did. He placed an envelope in front of me. "Your husband left a final letter, not the one about the DNA, a different one, sealed, with a single instruction, only to be opened if Kayla tried to fight the will." I took a breath, opened it, and read something that stopped my heart. "Carol, if you're reading this, it means she's come for the rest. But what she doesn't know is that I knew about the fake apartment, the fake name. I hired a private investigator after I overheard her phone call. She was planning this from day one. Enclosed is the full report. Give it to Mark when the time is right. And give her nothing, not even a second more of your peace." I opened the next envelope. Inside were pages of surveillance photos, bank records, a forged prenup Kayla tried to slip into our documents before the wedding. There was even a recording, her voice, crystal clear, on the phone with someone saying, "Once the old man's gone, the house is ours. Don't worry, Mark's a puppet. I'll make him sign anything." I felt my throat tighten. This wasn't just betrayal. This was a heist disguised as family. I took the entire file and drove to Mark's place. He opened the door like a ghost, eyes sunken from sleepless nights. "What now?" he asked, barely above a whisper. I handed him the file. This is the truth." He sat down, read everything, listened to the recording twice. By the end, he was shaking. "She never loved me," he muttered. "She just used me." I nodded gently. "But your son still needs a father who knows what love really means." The next day in court, Kayla arrived with fresh makeup and a thinner lawyer, probably the only one still willing to represent her. But we didn't say a word. We simply submitted the file. The judge reviewed it quietly. When she finished, she set it down, folded her hands, and said one word: custody, denied. Mark was granted full legal custody. I was granted open visitation. Kayla was given a 90-day restraining order pending psychological evaluation. Her expression didn't crack. She simply stood and walked out, like someone who finally realized the game was over and the board was gone. It was done. But the story didn't end there. Weeks passed. Mark and I rebuilt slowly. He moved into a smaller house with his son. Clean, peaceful, no shouting, no mind. Games. I came over on weekends, baked cookies, helped with homework, walked to the park. My grandson smiled more, laughed more. He even started calling me Grandma Carol again, instead of just her. And one night, as the sun dipped low, Mark sat next to me on the porch and said, "You saved me." I looked at him, quiet. No, I just stopped saving someone who never deserved to be part of our family. We watched the sky fade to orange. No drama, no final twist, just peace. The kind of peace you earn after the storm stops pretending it isn't one. And as for the house, the new owners sent me a card last month. "Thank you," it said. "We can feel the strength in these walls." I smiled, because the house was never the problem. The lie was. And now, every key in my pocket opens something I chose, not something I was forced into.